So, hi Johanna, welcome to this DevOps chat. Really very pleased to have you as a guest with us for the Twitter chat and also now to have a conversation with you about recruiting for DevOps.
Well, thank you so much. I'm so happy to be here.
Great stuff. Perhaps before we talk about recruiting for DevOps, you could tell us a little bit about your background. I mean, I first came into contact with you, I think it was over 10 years ago now, and I'm aware of some of the books you've read, quite a variety of books, that you've written on several different topics. So yeah, could you tell us a bit about your background and what you're working on now?
Sure. I started off as a developer back when we had no DevOps and no testing and it was all development all the time. And then I moved into testing for a couple of years, and then I became a project manager, a program manager, a manager, a director, a VP, and I finally said, I need to start my own business because I kind of run too fast from my clients and my companies. So that's fine. And I have been writing books since 2004.
Mm-hmm.
I think the first hiring book was published in 2004. And then came Behind Closed Doors with Esther Derby, Secrets of Great Management. Manage Your Guide to Modern Pragmatic Project Management, Manage Your Project Portfolio, Increase Your Capacity, and Finish More Projects. That was the first edition. The second edition just came out. Hiring Geeks That Fit and Manage Your Job Search, and Agile and Lean Program Management, Scaling Collaboration Across the Organization. I'm now working on a product owner book, because I have a workshop that's been quite successful. Possibly a writing book, because I have workshops that have been quite successful, and an Agile and Lean project management book, because what I'm seeing now is that so many people try and use Scrum, because Scrum is well known, there's a certification, and very few projects actually fit the requirements for Scrum. So they try and do Scrum and it doesn't work. It's not about Scrum. It's about applying something out of the box when you are unique and special snowflake. So I'm still working on how do we get Agile into more organizations if it fits for them, and what is the way it could fit for them.
Wow, fantastic. And that's a really relevant topic, I think, for so many people, because I think that there often is that tension between the traditional approach and the agile approach. And as you've hinted there, for a lot of people, agile equals Scrum.
Yeah.
And perhaps it is a case of people trying to lift something off the shelf when actually you need to understand a bit more about why have those principles evolved for Scrum and how do you apply them in your context. So, and it's interesting for me, I think there's been a sort of thread through a lot of your work in that, when you're talking about portfolio management, actually in some ways you can really map that onto agile principles and agile ways of working. So really interesting. We're going to focus a little bit on recruitment for this conversation. So in terms of recruiting people if you want to work in a DevOps way and you're trying to find people who will enjoy working in that environment, how does a DevOps approach change the demands on the people that are working on the team, do you think?
So for me, DevOps is not about the people who actually push the software out. DevOps is not just a state of mind, and you might also have people who help push the software out, but it's a way of thinking, how can we as a team take the requirements and get everything through our system, get the flow going so that we can, and if we have to go to staging before production, that we understand how to do that. But how can we as a team make sure that we are not handing stuff over the wall? That we as a team, right, developers, BAs, testers, product owner, project manager, scrum master, whatever it is you want as a facilitative project leader, the entire team understands, here's what we need to do to move software out to production so our customers can use it. Can we do this every day, multiple times a day? Maybe. Can we do it only once a day? Maybe. Can we do it only once every 2 weeks? But we as a team own that. And for me, that's what really DevOps is. Now, there are any number of ways you might implement DevOps, and maybe you do have a separate team of people who you integrate into your team in some way, or you have an agreement with them, you have a Kanban board that says, we are done with testing, our next thing is DevOps or push to production or something. But so are they part of your team? Maybe. Do they work with your team? Absolutely. Can you integrate them into your team? For me, that's the best part. So I am not religious about how we do DevOps. As long as we have a single stream that you don't have handoffs to people not too far outside the team.
Yeah, and I suppose and it's interesting you mention a Kanban board in passing there, because I think that's one of the great things I saw on a team I used to manage, was that once you get the flow up and everyone can see the whole flow, then people are much happier to work outside of their bit. And the example I often give is devs would be happy to help with the release side of things, because they could see there was no point writing more features if they were just going to queue up behind a backlog of releases that were waiting to go out the door. So really interesting. And so that's sort of highlighted how it is a different way of working for people. What impact do you think that has on how you recruit for people? How do you get people that want to work in that kind of way?
So for me, this goes back to the generalizing specialist. We are all specialists, right? So back when I was a developer, I worked at the platform level, at the embedded software level. I remember one of my managers saying, I had put together input from the command line. This is how old I am. And my boss said to me, JR, that's really not in the right order. Right? People are not going to look at that and understand it. And I said, well, it's what I need. Right? So do you ever give me a UI? No. But am I good enough at seeing UI, and now especially since I've worked in this field for a number of years, to say, who do I have to ask to make sure I'm right? Can I attack this to be working with other people? To make sure, or do I just pair or swarm on this? So I do my part, but then I make sure with other people in a swarming or mobbing exercise that we are all working on a coherent thing. So for me, it's about the generalizing specialist who is willing to move outside their strengths and comfort zone, and also willing to work as a team, especially for DevOps, because you're going to find that you get the feature partway through the flow and something will happen. And maybe not for every feature, maybe not every time, but Murphy's Law exists on projects, and getting it over that last line out to the customer can be a challenge. So I really like thinking, what can we do as a team? And so this goes to the generalizing specialist approach, to get that over the line, to get it out to our customers.
So it's the idea is that you need people who are, yes, they have their specialist skills, but who are also very willing and open to working with other people, and perhaps also recognizing where they will need that help and assistance and support from other people on the team. Okay, so that's a great insight. I suppose coming from the other angle, what advice would you give for people who think, I'd love to work in a DevOps environment, and maybe they're looking to apply for jobs and positions? What sort of things can they do to kind of strengthen their marketability, as it were, to employers who are looking for that?
So there's the experience, and then how you show your experience. So let me talk about the experience first, and don't let me forget about how to show it, because I don't want to forget that part. So for getting the experience, it's how do you take features and get them out to production? Whatever you do now, can you streamline it at all? Can you make it easier? I often think about automation. I think about build automation, test automation, production automation, whether it goes to staging first and then production, I don't care, right? You got to do what you have to do. for your environment, but how do you make it easy for anyone on the team to help move something to production? How can you remove any of the delays? If your build takes this long, can you move it to that long, right? If you don't have automated system tests and a variety of levels, which might not make them system tests, maybe they're smoke tests for the build, and maybe they're component level tests, and maybe there are several feature integration tests, whatever they are. How can you make enough of that automated so you know that you have good stuff? Right? Testing is about reducing risk. So how can we reduce risk and understand our risk faster? So and then you show the value of that on your resume. So you can say, I took, our build used to take 6 hours. I worked on it with the rest of the team, or because I suggested to our PO that if we had stopped taking 6 hours and we got it down to 1 hour, now it would be really helpful. The value of that was X number of days saved per iteration, Y number of hours, Z number of dollars. I should say Z, right? But whatever it is, and you have to show the value with numbers. Showing value with numbers on your resume is, well, it's not the most important thing, but it might be the second most important thing.
So I suppose it's great advice. So what you're really saying is, look at the complete value chain in whatever environment you're working, and almost, perhaps regardless of your role, look for opportunities to automate, to streamline, to make that better in some way. And then I think what you're saying before is that it's not just about doing it. Once you've done it, you need to update your CV, you need to sell it, and the key for that is to have some cold, hard numbers in there. Let's say it went from this to this. Fabulous. I suppose the other interesting point around that, which is not directly related to recruitment, is some organizations maybe have many years of history of quite a functional, quite a siloed approach with, perhaps a database analysts team or a system test team. What sort of things do you think organizations can do to develop and cross-train people to make them more comfortable, more productive, working in a more DevOps style of approach?
So the way I think about this is, it does not matter what kind of a project you have. You probably need a cross-functional team. It doesn't matter if it's a small one team cross-functional team, because you can't get the work out unless you have a cross-functional team. Handoffs between experts is a very slow way to work. So I have a number of blog posts on my managing product development blog about resource efficiency and flow efficiency. So you don't have to go agile. You just need a cross-functional team. And what I have also suggested to people in the program management book, and I believe an earlier version of it was on my blog, is allow people to self-select their cross-functional teams.
Right, yeah.
So you will have developers and testers who like working together. So allow them to work together. Sometimes projects do not need BAs, sometimes they do. So you probably don't have enough database administrators. You probably don't have enough BAs. You probably don't have enough testers. But think about what kind of full cross-functional teams you can make, and then figure out what to do with the extra people. They're not really extra, but they don't have the rest of the people they need for a cross-functional team. And then create communities of practice. The reason we started with functional groups was because this is showing my age again. That's fine. My gray hair also shows my age. We had functional managers because they were originally experts in our field. So I was the QA manager, the software quality assurance manager for a couple of different organizations. And one thing I did with my team every single week was we learned something in our weekly meeting. We didn't do status. I didn't believe in serial status meetings. We did have prizes, which are often chocolate, which is, why I need to lose more weight, about the best recursion of the week and the best problem you saw this week. And then we would do 20 to 30 minutes of learning. And we learned all kinds of things. So we learned how to do reviews. We learned about pairing. We learned about stories. This is back in the 90s, and Ron Jeffries, I think, had published something in one of the more in like the communications of the ACM or IEEE software about cards being a promise for a conversation. That was back in the very early users. Yeah. So we talked about it. We said, how can we do this? Because we don't really get the information we need in the requirements anyway. So what if we made a card and had that as a story? What is the story stuff? I don't know what the story stuff is, but it's a promise for conversation. If we told the requirements people we need conversations, could we do a better job? We had that produce a number of other things. So we had a community of practice in our group. When you move from functional groups to cross-functional teams, you don't want to lose that community of practice. And managers can create an environment in which communities of practice can thrive. Maybe other technical leaders can do it also. I'm kind of agnostic about that. But if you don't have the community of practice, it's really hard for the cross-functional teams to succeed over time. And we know that functional teams have delays. So if you want to be more in DevOps, right, I am bringing this back around, then you want cross-functional teams who understand how to reduce delays and still gain insights from each other over time.
And I suppose there's always a danger there, isn't there? That as you build cross-functional teams, it's important not to forget the requirement for guys who are interested in the same stuff to get together and learn from each other or learn from perhaps a specialist from outside. So it's a very, very good point. It's a little bit off topic, but it's something I see so often that you just briefly mentioned the difference between resource efficiency and flow efficiency. So maybe just quickly you can explain a little bit what you mean by that.
So I bet you've heard the term, we need to optimize our resources.
Yes.
Right? Those are actually people that they're talking about, and they're looking for 100% utilization or some stupidity like that. Our machines don't even run well at 80% utilization. They run really well at about 50 to 60%. So thinking about a human as 100% utilization is kind of not so. So that's the first piece. But that's not how we get features out to our customers. So customers don't buy development, they don't buy testing, they don't buy components, well, unless you're selling components. But for most people, they buy features for products. And so how do you optimize for features? That's flow efficiency. And in flow efficiency, you don't have experts with handoffs. In resource efficiency, you have the requirements expert who then hands off the requirement to the developers, who then implement, they write the code, they hand off to the testers, and the testers hand off to DevOps, except it doesn't work. So it goes back. Right?
Yes.
So somebody there realizes it's not working, it's not really a full feature. So you can think of this as maybe if you have 3-tier architecture with the platform on the bottom, the middleware, application layer, and the API and GUI, right, which might be kind of a 5-tier architecture. I don't know. I'm not an architect. So when you have a team that implements through in slices, right? Bill Wake said the slice of cake metaphor many years ago, which is a perfect metaphor. Then you get flow efficiency because everyone has to collaborate to get through the architecture and produce a feature. So I can give you the name of the book. I believe it's called This is Lean, Resolving the Efficiency Paradox by Modig and Alstrom. And I can send you the links on my website I did a 5-part series on flow efficiency, because our managers are still stuck in thinking that we do piecework and we don't.
Mm-hmm.
Because a feature is not piecework. A feature needs a cross-functional team to deliver it to the customer. And I like it when the cross-functional team includes DevOps of some sort. So it's really important to say, how can we get the cross-functional team working in the best way to move the story out to the customer? Yeah. I think of this as moving across the board, but it's really moving out to the customer.
A fabulous description. As you say, I think it's I don't know if it's counterintuitive. It probably is counterintuitive, but it is the idea that rather than optimizing to keep everyone busy, you optimize to get stuff that's actually worth something to someone out the door quickly. And I think it probably is counterintuitive, because I think one would assume that if everyone is working hard, then that would be the same thing as getting good stuff out the door. But it turns out the two are, to a point, inversely related, which I think is a great thing to understand. So we've had quite a long conversation, and it's been fantastic, and I'm aware of the time. So perhaps just before we end, you could just maybe give your top tip, if you like, for how to hire people that are going to really thrive in a DevOps environment. What would be your number one recommendation?
Look for behaviors, not for practices. So we think of practices as automation stuff and pushing stuff out to customers, and maybe that's not really the right, I'm going to leave it as pushing because I'm not sure what else to use as a verb. But there are behaviors that say, how can we create more value in less time to get features to our customers? Mm-hmm. Those are the behaviors you want to hire for. We understand, you've used one configuration management system or version control system, mm-hmm. you can use another one. Mm-hmm. You have tools. We are so good at creating and using tools, it's not even funny. So it's not about the tools. It's not about stand-ups or even looking at the flow in a Kanban. It's about that mental preparation that says, how do we help everybody on this team deliver valuable features, to our customers?
And I suppose, I was just going to say that I think as well, it's such a good point that part of DevOps is that idea that you're continually looking for better ways of doing things. So perhaps, again, that's the thing. It's not really saying, well, I learned this skill or I have this. It is coming back to what you said about what you need to demonstrate on your CV. It's where did you find something and improve it? Because ultimately, that's a big part of DevOps, I think, is it's not just doing the thing, it's finding ways of doing the thing better. So brilliant advice. And it's, as always, I mean, it's great to hear you speak and to listen to the insights you have. I'm sure we could probably talk for hours, John, but thank you again, both for participating in this video. I'm really looking forward as well to the discussion we have on Twitter.
Thank you so much. I really had fun. Thanks so much for inviting me.